In this video, I want to show you how I use Superior Drummer 3 to add samples to a real live recorded drum kit, similar to the way that you would use a program like Slate's Trigger 2. And so I'll show you what the song I'm working on here sounds like first, and then we can have a look at how I achieved this mix. So this is a song I mixed from a band called Glitch Kingdom. They're a pop punk band. So let's take a listen to the final mix of this song. Cool, great song, awesome energy, high energy song. So let's have a look at how I achieved the drum mix. So first of all, you can see I've got my live drums here. These are all my live drum tracks that the band sent me. Then below it in a separate bus, I've got all of my samples that are coming out of Superior Drummer 3. And I show this setup in another video that I've recorded where I go through this template that I've created in Superior Drummer 3. But this is the setup. So I've got my live drums here and my samples down here. So for now, I'm just going to mute the drum samples and I'm going to play you the live drums on their own with all of the processing that I've applied to them. You can see that if I have a look at the mixer here, there are some plugins on the individual mics and the individual channels for the live drum kit. So I'm going to play you what that sounds like with all the processing. Then I'm going to add the samples from Superior Drummer 3 so you can hear the difference and what those samples are adding to the live drum kit. So this is just the live drum kit on its own. Now with the samples added. Cool, so how do we do this? The first thing I would do after I have my template loaded in Superior Drummer 3 is I need to get the audio into a Midi track here in Superior Drummer 3 so that as I play the track, Superior Drummer 3 will be playing this Midi track and it will be triggering the correct drums, like the kick and the snare at the correct time. So let me show you how to do that. If we come over here to the Tracker tab and open this tab here, you'll see we can drop audio in here to get a Midi track. So I'll go and find the live recorded drums, the WAV files that the band sent me, and I'll just drop in the kick and the snare and the toms because I only want the close mics to be triggering sounds here in Superior Drummer 3. So let's do that now. Cool, so I've dragged in my live drum tracks, the individual mics for the kick-in mic, the snare top mic, the rack tom and the floor tom. I recommend as well, if you do have like a couple of mics on the kick drum, like a kick-in mic and a kick-out mic, you're better off using the kick-in mic because it's more isolated, so it will help Superior Drummer to be able to correctly match the sound and trigger its Midi. So if we hit play now, let's just listen to what is coming out of Superior Drummer now that we've loaded these tracks in there. Okay, cool. So you can hear, it does sound like there are some samples being triggered, but we can also still hear some cymbals and stuff that shouldn't be in the samples for these close mics and for the kick, snare, and toms. So what we need to do is turn up the mix knob 100%. Now we should all just be hearing the samples that are being triggered from Superior Drummer 3. So let's check that. Awesome. So now we're just hearing the samples. Again, this is using my custom preset that I've created for the Death and Darkness expansion in Superior Drummer 3. I will leave a link to download that if you're interested. So now that we have these loaded in here, if we zoom in, we want to make sure that all of the kicks, if we start with the kicks, all of the kicks are being triggered correctly. So we want to make sure there's a transient here, a line every time there's the kick hits, essentially. So we can go through and look and see, okay, every time it looks like there's a kick hit, yep, there's a line there. I like to go through and take the time to make sure that I'm actually hearing it correctly as well, because sometimes, depending on the song, there can be these smaller transients, which, like, these look like snare hits, but it may in fact be a kick hit. So I just like to listen through and make sure that everything is triggering correctly. So the way we can do that is if we solo the kick and bring back the mix knob, and then we listen, we should be able to hear the live kick, but also the sample playing at the same time. And if we're looking and we ever hear a live kick, but we don't hear the sample, then we know, okay, we need to add in a sample there. So let's have a listen. So I would go through and do that through the whole song. You can hear this one's recognized the sound pretty well, so we don't need to do too much adjusting. If you do need to adjust it here, you can drag this slider up and down, and that will pick up more or less hits depending on where you have this slider set. So you can go through the whole song and just see where you need to have this slider set. You can also adjust how much it's picking up kick hits based on the velocity. So if you have it up here, it'll only pick up hits that are really hard velocity. And if you have it down here, it'll pick up almost everything. So that's another way you can adjust it. And if you do find a good balance where you have this set and you have this set, the default settings are usually pretty good. But if you do find a good balance where you have everything set, but there is like one or two hits in here that aren't getting picked up. Say for example, if this was a hit, if this was a kick hit and you wanted to get Superior Drummer 3 to recognize it, you can manually add a hit in here by clicking this add tool here and then going in and just adding the hit where the transient is. Then you can adjust how loud it is. Actually, I think it's this one. Yeah, you just drag this up and it will adjust how loud or soft this kick hit is in Superior Drummer 3. So once you go through and do that for all of your tracks, like I said, it's mainly just the close mics that I want this for. So the kick, the snare, and the toms, if I am going to use toms. Once I've gone through and done that, we need to export this into the timeline on Superior Drummer 3 so we can have it play back alongside our live drums. So we want to click export over here, and that will bring up this window here where we can either choose to export the individual elements, or we can export the entire drum performance, the entire drum kit that we've put into Superior Drummer 3, so all the parts, the kick, the snare, the rack, and the floor tom. So let's do that. We'll grab the entire tracks combined. And I've already done it here. As you can see, it's already in here, but if we didn't have it in there, we would simply drag it in. So add MIDI, say okay. And then we would just want to make sure that everything is playing back at the correct time. So if we look here, this is the track that I imported into Superior Drummer 3. So even though I've cut it out and muted it here and within Logic, the actual first transient here is at bar 10. And so we want to make sure within Superior Drummer 3 that the first kick hit is here at bar 10, which it is. So it looks like we've lined that up nicely. Then we can check it. So if we go to this part of the song and just listen to our drum tracks, and we also just need to make sure that we haven't selected this tracker tab here, that we're back over on the drums tab. Otherwise we'll hear the audio from the tracker. So we need to make sure drums is selected. and then we can check to see that everything's lining up correctly. We should now hear our live drums playing alongside Superior Drummer 3. So let's have a listen to that. So you can see I've got my live drum tracks here and my samples coming from Superior Drummer 3 all playing at the same time. So that's basically how I use Superior Drummer 3 now alongside live drum tracks. I find that this preset that I've created within the Death and Darkness expansion just works really well for pop punk, for this kind of genre, just for adding extra punch to the drums, the live drums. And there's one other thing I do use that's not Superior Drummer 3, which I'll show you here. This is the Liquid Death Snare from Sam Pura, from his company, Purified Audio. So it looks like for this song, I'm just using the far mic, so everything else is muted. And if we just listen to this in solo on its own, that's what it sounds like. This is a free plugin, or at least it was when I got it. So you can go and check that out and see if it's still free. You may be able to download that. Like I said, it's a really cool plugin for adding samples to a snare drum. So let's just have a listen to the whole drum mix. And I'll start with this Liquid Death Snare muted, and then I'll add it in and we can see what it's adding. Cool, so that's what the Liquid Death Snare is adding. Just a little bit more room sound. Let me go through and show you what the samples now are adding individually, the individual sample channels coming from Superior Drummer 3. So what I'll do is I'll start with just the live drums, and slowly I will add the samples that I've got here coming from Superior Drummer 3. As you can see, I'm not using all of the channels. I'm just using the kicks, the snares, the room mid mics, and the snare room mic. So let me mute those for now. And we'll start with just the live drums, and then I will add in the samples one by one. So this is just the live drums. Now with the sample kicks. And the sample snares. And the sample room mics. And finally the sample snare room mic. So they really just help to fill out that drum sound, and I don't have to do as much heavy processing on the live drums. I can just do less processing there and rely more on the samples to bring the punch and impact that I need to achieve this modern sound. So let's just listen to the whole song one more time, the drums in context with the rest of the music. So there you go, that's how I use Superior Drummer to add samples to a live recorded drum track for a pop punk song. If you're interested in walking through and seeing how I did the live drum mix and going through all the processing here, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, I hope that's helpful, and thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.